So it's what you do when you don't know what to do. It deals with how do you make decisions under uncertainty? How do you deal with complex preferences? How do you make complex trade-offs? And then how do you help people think about and come up with good alternatives? In the public sector, I think it's quite a bit harder to just identify what are we trying to do? Right? What are we trying to optimize, maximize, or get more of or get less of? And there's also multiple, there's usually not just one, there's multiple objectives. And how do you quantify them? How do you measure them? How do you trade them off? And that is a very active part of decision analysis. There's really, I would say, two big camps. There's decisions are hard because of uncertainty, and then there's decisions are hard because we don't know what we want.
And the main goal of the project is to try to understand, even though engineers claim that carbon capture technologies have actually been technically ready for quite a while, and we think that they should be cost effective to deploy given currently available incentives, we don't actually see that much enthusiastic deployment in the field, at least to date. So our project is really an effort to try to understand the discrepancy between what our cost estimates suggest should be deployed versus what we actually observe, and to try to see whether there are more effective policy approaches we could implement.
I would say for the most part, what people think of as analytics, right, or data mining, is really only the second component. It's what do we know, or what don't we know? It's quantifying that particular element. And that's necessary, but it's not sufficient to make good decisions. To make good decisions, you have to have good alternatives. And as far as I'm aware, that's a human endeavor still at this point, thinking about different alternatives. And you have to be clear what you want. And some decisions are complex because there's multiple objectives, especially decisions in the government. But I see operations research, decision analytics as being broader than quote AI, and AI addressing an important element of it, but it's not sufficient. Some people have a view, if we just squeeze the data hard enough, the decision's going to pop out. That hasn't been my experience, really, that there's still a big role for the decision maker to play. I guess my hope, and I believe that there'll be more of a demand or more of a focus on the decision-making component. I think people are initially quite excited about the new analytic methods for quantifying uncertainty or pulling information out of data. But I think ultimately they'll be disillusioned, or ultimately it will bring to the fore, well, what decision are we trying to make and what information do we need to make that decision? So I hope the progression is more of a focus on decision analytics and not just analytics.
One important direction I see this field going, both in research and in practice, is thinking more seriously about robustness and risk, and especially shocks to systems. So there are a couple highly salient examples. So of course, the pandemic and its effect on supply chains, I think, has a lot of companies thinking about, not only how to maximize efficiency under the circumstances that you expect, but also how to ensure that your supply chains or whatever your organization is robust to these kinds of low probability, high impact events. So I know there's a lot of enthusiasm for that direction. And then similarly, if you think about things like natural disasters and extreme weather and climate change, that's a similar sort of topic. You're thinking about low probability, high impact events and how to ensure that your system doesn't totally break down if you end up in that kind of world. And I can think of lots of other examples, but I think that's a general theme is, for a while we've focused on making our systems as efficiently as possible, operate as efficiently as possible, possibly without enough thought about what happens if, the world is a bit different than the input data that you gave to your model. So I think that's likely an important direction.